What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to Redemption with Jaden. I am sitting here with my good friend Tim, who many of you know as BaboonyTim, and we're going to be doing some Type 2 conversation stuff today. So I'm excited for that. So Tim's got a kind of Type 2 build that he's been working on, or kind of putting through some thoughts and experimentation here, and we thought that it would be fun if we just kind of have a conversation about it. He wanted to talk to me about it and my experience with Type 2, and kind of see his approach to building a deck, and what my experience could lend to this. So Tim, first of all, welcome, and why don't you tell us about the deck here, the idea, and kind of what you were thinking when you put together this pile of 100+ cards, which I guess you're kind of used to now. But,
Yeah, I've been really enjoying playing Big Clay in Type 1. And the Big Clay is a 100-card deck, mostly clay cards, hence the name. And it's unique in the fact that it's playing like this 100-card deck with just a bunch of meek souls. And so I was wondering, like, what would it look like to build a version of Big Clay in Type 2? And yeah, so that's where this idea came from. So obviously we got the Meek Lost Soul package. And we also have another excuse to try it out. We got the Prince of the Air card, which is just becoming legal right now.
This dude is
So
crazy.
this guy does not mess around. And so I was trying to figure out, like, okay, what would a Type 2 deck look like playing Clay, playing Meeks, and playing Prince of the Air? And so this is kind of what I ended up with. We have a Disciple package with some angels, of course, to get to those disciples.
Mm-hmm.
But crazy enough, we're not playing Resurrection because of the constraints of
it's one of the
Type
first
2
things I
deck.
feel like most people will have noticed here is like, wait a minute.
Yeah, call me crazy, but I'm here with Dr. Jaden. We're gonna try to figure out if I'm a crazy old man, crazy monkey, or because of the deck building constraints of Type 2, right? You have to play equal number of good and evil cards. And so Big Clay, you can really lean into the big banding, having lots of heroes, but you're forced to cut a lot of heroes if you're building a Type 2 deck. You can't have as many as that you normally want. So I was thinking, like, okay, maybe banding isn't the way I want to go. So that's kind of the thought with that decision there.
Nice. Yeah, that's one thing that if you're not familiar with Type 2, maybe I'll give a brief overview here. As Tim mentioned, you have to have an equal number of good and evil cards in your deck. And so in this particular deck, I believe your split is 38 good and evil, and then 26 neutral cards. So it's 102 total. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So then, so he's got 38 good cards, 38 evil, and then the neutral, you just kind of fill in what's left. You have to have at least 100 cards in your deck. You get a 15-card reserve. However, the reserve also has to be split evenly. So you can see he's got one neutral card here with Zacchaeus being both good and evil in the reserve, and then 7 good cards and 7 evil cards. So what that means is that Type 2 games are generally going to be more balanced as far as back and forth, and you have to play some amount of defense, and so there's going to be a little bit less aggression. Games tend to take a little bit longer. You play to 7, and in my opinion, that makes the format more fun, more exciting, because I think there's more of a variety of different styles of decks that you can play, and the meta is a little more diverse. It's not just about zoom to get your dominance. It's a little bit of that. That's it's become a little more of that. I think recently, as the Type 1 meta has kind of shifted in the similar direction, but I think Type 2 overall lends itself well to having good variety, good games, and just a fun meta, if you ask me, at least. So
Mhm.
so yeah, that's why
Mhm.
we're going to be doing a little bit of Type 2 content here. I'm hoping to do at least a few more Type 2 videos kind of leading up to nationals. And I guess I don't know if I should ask here because I don't want to, force it upon you if you haven't for sure made your
Oh,
decision yet. But just kind of let us know where are you at on Type 2 at nationals this year.
I'm in the very interested category. I'm like open to trying it as opposed to last year where I was not open to trying it because
Okay.
it was a very intimidating format. I just like wandered over to a couple people's tables that were playing Type 2, and the amount of cards that were on the table at a given time was a lot, right? And you have these all these markers on your characters. I'm like, what are
Mhm.
those dice doing?
Yep.
But I feel like I had some reservations. And also from like a budget perspective, I'm like, well, I'm just trying to build my type 1 decks. I don't want to spend a bunch of money on getting a bunch of other cards too. So I
Yeah.
also had like a preconceived notion about like the cost of the format too was prohibitive.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, twice as many cards as a typical Type 1 deck. I think a lot of people have similar thoughts about it. Also, since you can play multiples of certain cards, then that can be a barrier if you're just trying to collect one of each card for Type 1. But I mean, I guess I have to assume that your kind of foray into Type 2 has been kind of, uh, you kind of got a preview as you started to dabble into the bigger decks with Type 1, right?
Yeah. And that's where I really like started to slowly like I had a type 1 deck. I had this clay type 1 deck, and then to upgrade it to make it a big clay deck, you just had to like buy just a couple of duplicates.
Mm.
And then to turn the big clay into this type 2 deck, I have to buy some more duplicates. So it's like kind of more of like a gradual stepped process
Yeah.
than trying to just buy two of every, you know, redemption card ever. Of course, that's going to be really prohibitive, but just like finding a deck I want to build and just focusing on that and start going from there.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I think, on that note, I guess I'll maybe mention some of the Type 2 deck building things. So, of single brigade, four color, or sorry, single brigade, one color cards, like characters and enhancements, you can have up to four copies of them in the deck. So, that's why you can see it's got three copies of Prince of the Air, four copies of Plotting Priests. For cards with two brigades at face value, then you can have up to two of them in the deck. So, like just a hireling, he's got a couple of those. Faith of Gideon, Love One Another, where that's a difference in Type 1. Where in Type 1, if the card has more than one brigade, you can only have one of it in your deck. And that also goes for, of course, the multi brigade cards like three brigades, like Wages of Sin. Now in Type 2, that's also limited to one per deck. So anything more than two, like Jerusalem here, Wages of Sin. For sites, you can have up to two of a single site. So you can see that Damascus is the site side of that is prohibiting uh, Tim from including more of those because you can have up to three of any given fortress. Um, I'm not expecting anybody to remember that just from this video. You can go check out the Type 2 deck building rules, but just to kind of give you an overview. And I will say that this deck in particular is actually uh, seems to be fairly, I mean, budget, so to speak, where, Prince of the Air is going to be kind of the most cost prohibitive, I think, element at this point, since you've got three copies of him in here and most people don't even own a single copy at this point, so it's going to be a little tough to get. So that might be a trick if you're able to get them all before nationals. But I suppose maybe you can borrow some from some Type 2 sponsoring individuals, or and then maybe Book of the Covenant is the other one to mention here. That you've got two of that ultra rare, but otherwise, I mean, everything else is a either a single copy of kind of an expensive card, or it's you've got multiple copies, but they're kind of on the cheaper side. I guess the Deceiver is maybe a trickier one that people might not have two of. But I mean, overall, I would say that this is not that bad. The Judean Mediums, can be it's a regional promo, but you can also get it in Persecuted Church set. So As far as Type 2 spending goes, since you're not playing Authority of Christ in here, then it's not too bad. And the Meek Lost
Yeah,
Soul package also helps, I suppose. But
yeah.
um,
Call me crazy for not playing Authority of Christ in the Disciples deck, right?
that was maybe one of the things that I was going to question a little bit. It's not specific to Type 2, so I wasn't going to dwell on it too much here, but but yeah, I see you've got the Colosseum element going on here, so there's certainly some reason for not having to do that. So I guess before we jump into it, are there any kind of certain kind of overarching strategies or specific strategies that you want to go over for the deck of what you're trying to accomplish? I know you're talking about kind of big clay and Meek Soulhide with Prince of the Air, but just kind of maybe any specific interactions or like game plan, I guess, that you kind of had in mind.
Yeah. The best card that I've found against Prince of the Air has been the card I Am He. It's a purple card, territory class. You can play it down, protect lost souls and disciples from harm. So that kind of deals with both of the ways Prince of the Air can attack you. So if
Mm,
I'm expecting Prince of the Air to be really strong and really heavily played in other decks, I'm trying to preemptively decide of like how can I deal with that card right now.
mm.
And so this is the best way I've found. And so I notice I have 4 copies in the deck, 2 in the main deck, 2 in the reserve. But the idea is like how many turns can I just like play this down, push a disciple that has protection? And that's gonna be my primary game plan.
Yep. Okay.
And yeah,
So yeah, so I see. Yeah,
also
and you've got the battle winners to back them up. Although I do wonder if King of Tyrus is or like a Sapphira or kind of the Edomite negate ability cards will
mhm,
give you a little trouble. But I guess that's where Simon comes in. He can kind of
right.
correct for that a
Yeah,
little
that's
bit.
a good point because I'm not playing any CBP enhancements or any Authority of Christ, so that's a very good point. But in the late game, we're really trying to use Simon, choosing a blocker that we can get initiative with, and just ideally it's possessing spirit.
Hmm.
And so if we play like a battle winner like Love One Another, we can bounce possessing spirit to our hand and kind of redo that attack next turn, so to say.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Even Redemption kind of has a similar. I mean, you're reserving possessing spirit, but you have a few ways to
Hmm.
get them back out of reserve.
Yeah.
Nice.
Redemption's also kind of like the we have I am he at home type effect. But giving protection to meek cards is really nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Meek
Protecting meek
heroes, I
heroes.
should
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. Yeah. For
But
sure.
I don't know how good Redemption is though. That's the thing. These are cards that I'm just theory crafting, but I really don't know in practice how impactful they are. Like, is like 3 copies too much?
Mm.
That's where I'm really struggling right now.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, it's, I will say it's not as good as Authority of Christ, but no. um, I mean, it's a nice toss for Herod's Temple, which is kind of cool. So you've got that going in here. I think it saw a little bit of play when people were able to splash Star of Bethlehem into their like GOC good stuff decks, and you could kind of have a similar like Flight into Egypt effect. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean, curious to see if you're able to activate the star ability often enough to make it worth it with the 3 copies there. Um, yeah, we
Yeah.
can definitely be something to keep an eye on. Do you want to explain the whole Faith of Gideon thing here? You don't have any cloud heroes. Why are you trying to make some side battles here too?
Yeah. So it's Faith of Gideon, you push Simon into battle. And Brian Jones taught me this, but if you target Prince of the Air fighting somebody else and leave the original evil character in battle, you can have Prince of the Air underdeck himself and the other evil character. And there's like no way for the opponent to respond to that. So it's like a just use it to like draw 2 off a Prince and win the battle.
Hmm. Yeah, so that's kind of a uh, uh, maybe a sneak preview too for one of my upcoming videos here, because yeah, I think there are a lot of things that you can do similar to that with Prince of the Air that people are probably figuring out, but I don't know how many people have actually tried it out yet because you don't have a physical copy yet. But that is definitely a pretty good interaction. The other aspect of it is that Prince of the Air, assuming your opponent has enough good brigades, you can underdeck their evil character in battle. You can underdeck Faith of Gideon, and you can underdeck Prince of the Air. If they have 3 good brigades, so then you get to recycle your Prince of the Air with Gates of Hell or get it back out, and then if you have ways to search for or just kind of redraw into Faith of Gideon, then you can keep on doing that as well. So that is certainly a powerful interaction. I think we're going to see a little bit more of side battles with Prince of the Air, which is kind of a fun thing, kind of I don't know if it's necessarily good for the game because they've kind of stopped printing side battles for a reason, but they didn't put an if blocking clause on Prince of the Air, so that's I don't know. It's kind of the card creators. It's on them, right? At least you can't convert Prince of
Uh-huh.
the Air to
Uh-huh.
a hero because it is a demon.
Yeah.
So that's you can't
Yeah,
attack
they
with
thought
it.
of that. Hmm.
um, but yeah, I mean, and going forward, side battle cards will not be as common, or they're not being printed, so it's not necessarily a long term concern, but yeah, definitely some fun things you can do with prints, and of course, if they have enough good brigades, you can also underdeck some things in their territory. You can underdeck some of your lost souls in the side battle, so yeah, it seems pretty good. I will say, so one of the Type 2 basic principles that I think has kind of adapted over time is with unique characters. You want to like very rarely have more than 2 of any unique character in a deck, and even then, like if I have 2, it's only going to be the most kind of central characters, such as like Zerubbabel. I think in my
Hmm.
2021 Nationals deck, I had one Jeshua in main deck and one in reserve, and like so it's kind of, and I think other than that, other than those 2, like those were the only uh, or heroes that I had, or characters even that I had more than one of, for unique characters, because you can only have one of them in play at a time. With Prince, though, I will say that he's probably a reasonable exception. Having 3 copies because he can underdeck himself, and often you want to underdeck himself. I think that makes sense, but just kind of a general principle for anyone who's looking to get into Type 2 and you're putting a deck together. You might think like, oh, I really want to build a deck around, Joshua or Benaiah, or one of these single brigade heroes that you could use 4 copies of, and maybe in some cases that can work if you build your deck, kind of specifically for that. But a lot of times you're just going to end up with multiple copies clogging up your hand, and you might wish that instead you had something else, and something that's allowed Type 2 to, or Type 2 decks, I guess, to kind of diversify a little bit, to not have so many copies, are the heroes like Angel from the Sun, Reassuring Angels, the Angel of the Winds, particularly. That's one where you could have 2 or 3 copies in a Type 2 deck, even though it is unique. I still usually go on the side of like 1 or 2, but it definitely helps to get
Hmm.
to kind of those key heroes that you need. Angel from the Sun
Hmm.
being generic, I can see you planned well for that. You've got 1 Reassuring Angels, so you can go to your discard pile and whatnot. But Angel from the Sun is nice because you can just plop the extras down in your territory for future use.
Yeah,
Um,
that's something I definitely picked up on in the 100 card big clay deck. Just having duplicates of unique heroes is very bad because
yeah.
basically you're just drawing dead cards.
Hmm.
So just trying to minimize the damage of that, but also wanting to take advantage of the fact that I can play more of these cards than I could in a typical 100 card type 1 deck. So it's been a tightrope act that I don't know how well I've been able to navigate that here.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's nice. I mean, you can, yes, you kind of have the little white splash to get Jesse and Obed. and then I guess Akeem there with the gold too to um, take advantage of the higher card breadth, I guess that you have, so you can have some of those strong effects. Um, yeah, maybe one of the things that I was curious about is the land of Moab with Jesse and Obed. Like I understand wanting to get them out early, but just kind of in the late game, if you already have Jesse and Obed, then land of
Mhm.
Moab isn't as good. I wonder if you'd be better off with something else in that slot. But
Yeah, or even cutting it because I'm at 102. I could cut a neutral card
oh
here,
yeah,
go down to 101.
sure, yep.
But I was thinking like, yeah, these are heroes I really want to get out because opponents lost souls I really want to negate as often as I can. And even if it's late game, I can just plop it down, increase my hand size by 1. That seems pretty good too, because I really want to keep evil characters in my hand.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, I
but I
suppose.
could see cutting
Yep.
it.
Yeah, that'd be yeah. I mean, something to consider, keep an eye on. The other, all right. I feel like we got to talk about this whole resurrection deal.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
uh, you're not using John, which that's means you only have one empty tomb hero to get out, and then you've got the two fortresses. I think my argument still for using resurrection is banning to your opponent's heroes is very strong. Like, I mean, in type 1, you're often trying to go for like turn 1 resurrection. In type 2, that's not often as realistic. But later in the game, if your opponent is running a New Testament offense, then you're much more likely to be able to take advantage of their cards as well. It can kind of help you get back
Mhm.
into the game if they've
Yeah.
hurt you a bit, or set you back a little bit with their counters or whatnot. So I'm thinking between that and the fact that you have two copies of Four Drachma Coin, making Peter an important target to get out early, I guess, to have those available to actually do something. I mean, I guess other than protect, which isn't too bad, but you want the
Mhm. Mhm.
that slot for you want that slot open. Um, so I think that the resurrection should still be in here somewhere. Um,
I could cut it for I could cut grapes for it because grapes is also that kind of similar. If I'm kind of behind, it can help catch me up.
yeah, I could see that, especially if you're not playing like Ascension or any other mass bands. Um, to like bring in their whole offense and then play grapes or something like that. Um, the other option, I guess, would be if you were to cut an evil dominant. I don't know. Shipwreck is probably good enough. I mean, it's better, I think, in type 2 than in type 1, just because. Well, I don't know. It's good in type 1, but you're just not good enough to justify the slot for it. Um, and type 2, pretty much everybody's going to be playing fortresses, so you're going to have a target at some point. But I could also see grapes being a better option. Um,
If
trying
I
to,
cut shipwreck, don't I have to like keep good an even number of good and evil dominance?
so you can have a different number of good and evil dominance. You just have to have overall good and evil
Oh.
balanced.
Wait,
So
wait a second. Oh, okay.
so you cut shipwreck, you add a
Oh,
different evil card. You have to cut a different good card, and then you could add resurrection.
oh man. Okay, that changes things.
Oh, okay. Well, that's yeah, I didn't realize that was this is why we do these sort of things, because now everybody else who may have also made that assumption now knows that, yeah, as long as
Yeah.
your total good and evil cards are the same, and and your total number of dominance is still less than or equal to the number of lost souls you have, then you're okay. So you could even cut two evil dominance, add two evil cards, cut a good card, add resurrection, and then add chronicles or something if you wanted to
Hmm.
run that as well.
Yeah, Chronicles is really great with Prince of the Air as well. Yeah.
Mm, yeah, yeah, and Colosseum and your yeah. So I think that would be decent for your lineup. Probably what I would be tempted to do is cut a copy of the New Covenant for Resurrection, and then uh, probably cut Shipwreck for uh, yeah, another evil card,
Hmm.
maybe another evil enhancement. Um, I don't know.
Yeah,
The thing
makes sense.
that I kind of I'm curious about, I guess, is if you would want some negates to go with Prince of the Air, like blindness or blasphemies or something like that, just so that if you are actually just gonna straight up trying to do a Prince of the Air block, say they're protecting lost souls or something like that, um, then you have some backup for them. But
Yeah, yeah, that's valid. What do you think if just investing more in Judean mediums? So what if like I don't need negates? I could just play more Judean mediums.
yeah, I mean, I think you're probably fairly confidently going to be able to rely on your opponent using a draw or search, but if it's their only play,
Yeah,
then they're going to not do it if they don't need to,
yeah.
and then
So you're
play
saying
their
like in
amazing faith.
scenarios where they haven't drawn or searched, or and they're protecting souls, then I need some other blocking options.
Right. I mean, it's I don't know how often it's going to come up, and the one thing that I'm a little skeptical to like uh, proclaim confidently, I guess, is anything about like the soul high defense in Type Two, because honestly, that's not something that I've done much or really seen other people do a whole lot. I do think that Prince of the Air kind of makes it more viable now. I think that the I think there was some viability before, um, between uh, Plotting Priest and Anansi Elder, but I think it's just, um, and I guess especially that was maybe before the change to Rescuer's Choice, which is for anyone not aware, it's a added rule to Type Two where it used to be where at the beginning of a battle you would choose which lost soul you were rescuing for, and if that lost soul got underdecked or removed in some way, that was an unsuccessful rescue. Like you couldn't rescue any of the other lost souls out there. Now it's changed so that at the end of a battle, after all effects have complete, the outcome of the battle is determined. You choose which lost soul you rescue, which means that if you're just a hireling shuffles three lost souls and your opponent still has one, then they can just rescue that one, even if they, or because they didn't have to choose it at the beginning. Um, so, I mean, that would have made Prince of the Air even more bananas if Rescuer's Choice was still the way it used to be. But I think that now it's still pretty good, or could be good, has potential. So yeah, that's one thing where maybe you don't need as much blocking power overall as far as like enhancements and all that goes if the soul hide strategy does pay off well.
Mhm.
I get um,
Yeah. What
so
what's something about Type Two that is different than Type One that would make Soulhide a little bit less viable strategy on paper, you think?
I think the duration of the game and also just some of the like momentum swings, like it's it can be a little bit harder to pick up momentum in Type Two, but you also throughout a game, I think there can be more momentum swings than in Type One. Type One often it's like, oh, if I go first and I have a really big turn one, the odds of you coming back on turn two with some kind of big catch up play or something like, or even like just catching up before the game is over, in 3 to 4 turns, the odds of that are a little bit lower. Whereas in Type Two, you're gonna have a few more turns, you're gonna have more opportunities, and also the decks are just kind of by nature, I guess, there's a higher uh, variance, I guess, or your draws are going to be a little more awkward, or if you have a draw with you know, two copies of Prince of the Air, two copies of Gates, and two copies of Great White Throne or something, like it can be a uh, little weird at the beginning because you're not really getting to your acceleration pieces. Um, and so
Hmm.
for Soulhide specifically, I think that if your opponent is, kind of has you backed against a corner a little bit and they have some kind of soul gen, then I think it's going to be hard for you to kind of get back into the game or kind of get the momentum back into your favor, because I think they'll be able to get back into it more. But if your defense is more focused on like value, or kind of how can I generate value, like drawing cards or searching instead of
Right.
just kind of hiding souls, then that I think
Yeah.
gives you a little more. But
Like your thief deck from your nationals is very much about blocking, generating card advantage,
yeah,
and even the defensive enhancements can take stuff and generate more resources for you every
right,
time you block.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that the Prince of the Air definitely helps. You get a little bit of card or like card draw, and then also you're punishing their uh, any advantage they have with the number of good brigades and that kind of stuff. And doing that in side battles too on your turn can also be kind of accelerate you. So it's not like that's why I think that it's more feasible now. But yeah, it's something to I'll be curious, I guess, just to see how it pans out. So and something that I
Right.
think could
Yeah.
certainly catch some people off guard with in that respect, though, because Soulhide hasn't been big in Type Two, so the players like me who obviously I'm kind of seeing what you're doing now and like, oh, this is kind of has to be on my radar. But I think for other players, like they might not know, okay, this is how much soul gen I'm actually going to need in Type 2, because with longer games in Type 2, people aren't always thinking about soul gen quite as much, because it's like, oh yeah, souls usually come out.
Mhm.
And if you have to wait a turn because there's no lost soul available, it's not quite as uh
Yeah.
not quite as bad, I guess, as it is in
Backbreaking.
Type 1. Yeah, yeah.
That makes sense. Okay.
Let's see.
Well, is
So
there anything else you wanted to talk about before you wrapped it up here?
yeah, I think maybe just kind of doing a quick overview on each of the uh I don't know, sections, I guess. So like your neutrals, I think they look pretty good. I think there might be room for a little more variety in the artifact slot if you want, maybe like an Ark of the Covenant or the Cross or something to um, make it a little easier for your solo rescues to go through. I mean, I guess the I am he definitely helps against some of the evil dominance that people will have, but things like grapes and glory, could still hurt, and the cross would kind of complement your Colosseum uh,
Yeah, that's a good point.
route.
Hmm.
So that would be something to consider, I think. I'm not sure. I can see why you have two copies of each of these. I would be potentially tempted to cut one copy of book just because you have a decent amount of other, or like ways to get your other uh, covenants from reserve. Um,
Yeah, I
but
think the reason why I'm really prioritizing book is because I really need to have a way to bounce my Simons every turn.
yeah,
So like if I don't do that, then my deck loses a lot of its power.
right, yeah, and I suppose you're not. Book can't go in Herod's temple, so you're um, losing out on that extra artifact slot, I guess. Temple Veil could be something to consider for that reason. If you
Hmm.
maybe do a Temple Veil instead of a book, um, and getting the hand
Yeah.
information obviously is nice too. My general approach in Type 2, even though you can have multiple copies, is just to kind of diversify a little bit so you have more options. There's a lot more searching and uh, kind of accessibility to cards than there was in Type 2 like years ago, or I mean, I guess not even that many years ago, but I think today, if there's a card in your deck, you usually will see it during a game, or at least have the opportunity to see it if you think it's going to be good. And so that would be maybe something to consider, so that you have a way for getting hand information, and then also bouncing. I could also see Joseph of Arimathea being a good fit in place of. Oof, that's kind of tough. Um, maybe
Lazarus.
maybe Lazarus. Yeah,
Gabriel.
I was kind of thinking maybe either Lazarus or Thaddeus. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean that would be something to consider as far as having another bouncer, having another
Yeah.
choose option. Fortunately, he only chooses
Yeah.
humans,
Great.
so
Great
he
idea.
can't do possessing. But and he's also an empty tomb hero for when you add resurrection.
Hmm.
um, as far as the offense, I think the only uh, other concern would be kind of what you already brought up with redemption. It's like, is that good? Is it viable as far as like kind of counting on maybe getting one activation of the star ability in each game? You know, I wouldn't necessarily want to count on it, but also it's coming from the guy who thinks that 4 copies of Purloin in Type 2 is really good because of the star ability. So
Yeah.
I think,
I can see where how this could be not be as good because Purloin really generates that tempo swing, helps you get back in a game that you're losing. But
mhm,
this one's like really good if you're ahead. So I
yeah,
could see cutting down copies or just like trying something else altogether here.
yeah, I think, maybe some CBP options, maybe 1 copy of AOC just to have it as like a, release valve. If things start getting out of hand, just to find a way to turn off your Coliseum, and then Simon, awesome things AOC. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I think other than that, I do like where your head's at. I guess with the I am he, I do think that's a strong card. My only concern is the speed, as far as like you have a lot of tutors for your I am he's and stuff. You have generous giving, which I think is pretty good in this style of deck. The one thing that you might lose out on a little bit are those kind of big uh, swinging plays, I guess, where you abandon a bunch of heroes and get a bunch of draws and that kind of stuff. Where if decks are doing that sort of thing, you might fall a little bit behind. So the speed of the
Yeah.
offense is definitely something to consider. Like how often can I forego Simon and just attack with Matthew? Yeah, that could be good. Um, so yeah, that would something to keep an eye on in testing
Hmm.
here.
If opponents do go really fast, like that's a good point about how they can generate a lot of resources. But that's where I'm hoping my defense can kind of come in. Sure, they can get all their stuff out, but if there's no souls to rescue, then what good are all those cards going to do? But I'm saying, or I'm hearing that if they have that plus more soul generation, I'm going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I think that uh, I mean, if the player is at least somewhat prepared, they have some soul gen options. I think they'll be able to find ways to kind of play around at least the straight up hiding. So either doing like some soul protection, or just turning off your plotting priests, or just being more careful about their drawing and searching for Anansi Elder and Judean mediums. Um, but yeah, I mean it's something that, like I said before, I don't have much prior experience with, so I could certainly see it
Mhm.
being more impactful than my initial uh, thoughts, I guess, or
Yeah.
my
Okay.
my gut feeling. But um,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, I do like the defense overall. I think the double Annis the Elder is good. You've got the this is a good approach for anyone watching, where you for your unique characters you can have one in the main deck and one in reserve. So one with the Bez and Judean mediums. You've got one in each there, so that you're not drawing duplicates. You can get the ones in reserve kind of as needed, like with your 2 copies of the Deceiver. And then also you've got Damascus in here, which I think is a great play when you're kind of have the strategy like you mentioned of trying to keep your evil characters in your hand. You're pretty likely to get those to work, and then combined with Lost Child Found, it can be pretty solid to get your defense rolling, make sure your princes stay afloat. Um, yeah, overall, I would say really well done for kind of a draft of your first. Well, I guess you had built some other kind of Type 2 decks, or at least one other one that you were working on before, but kind of your first foray into Type 2. So yeah, definitely good. I
Mm.
can see your big
Thank you.
play experience paying off here. So any
Thanks,
final
Jaden.
thoughts or questions you had?
Um, so I really kind of leaned into, okay, I have the Colosseum, so I can't play any CBN stuff. In a 100 card deck, am I just being really preemptively limiting like there? I know you said like, oh, I could see playing one more copy of Authority of Christ, but are there worlds where I even play Colosseum and 2 copies of that, or just
Um, I c- I could see that. I think one of the things in Type 2 is like, yeah, it's a big deck. It's 1 copy of Colosseum. So for one, you're not going to have it out right away necessarily. You do have 3 copies of Prince, so you can usually get it out kind of whenever you need to. But the um, usually what I tend to think is that in the games where it really matters, your opponent is going to have an answer to it, or is going to be able to deal with it. It might, maybe take them off guard one turn where they're packing 3 Amazing Faiths in their hand, and then you block with Prince of the Air and put Colosseum into play, and then, well, actually they probably just toss 2 of the Amazing Faiths to kill Prince of the Air, but you underdeck their hero too, let's say. Um, then that can catch them off guard, but by the next turn they're probably
yeah,
attacking with
okay,
Zacchaeus to reserve your Colosseum, or they're having some kind of answer to it.
yeah,
So really, if you want to lean into an effect like that, I think you do that by having kind of a multiplicity of sources. So adding the cross, I think, wouldn't be a bad idea to kind of supplement that a little bit. But also, if you just run 1 copy of Colosseum, I think that you can count on your opponent having an answer for it, or if it doesn't seem like it's going to affect them, you just kind of figure out a way to deal with it yourself. Maybe you underdeck it with Prince, or you bounce it with Lost Child Found, and then you attack and do your AOC.
mhm,
So I could definitely see 2 copies of AOC still being in here,
yeah,
even with 1 copy of Colosseum
yeah.
and even 1 copy of the Cross.
Even I can use Great White Throne to discard my Colosseum after I'm done using it and just push
Yeah, that's
a
also true.
disciple.
Yep. Yeah, between Great White Throne,
Okay.
Lost Child Found, yeah, I would say you're uh, be pretty okay with it. The downside is that the makes the deck a little less budget if you do both copies of AOC. But
Yeah.
yeah. Speaking of the budget, I do just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors over here at Your Turn Games. They sponsor this channel, Redemption with Jaden, that you're watching this on. I know it's confusing because Tim's here with me, but I do want to give them a shout out. If you do want to get into Type 2, if what we're talking about has you a little bit excited, you want to pick up a couple extra copies of cards so that you can build a Type 2 version of your Type 1 deck, Your Turn Games is the way to do that. can pick up some singles or some just some packs to have more quantity of cards, and then put together a Type 2, kind of how you can do it with what you got. So anyway, I think that's all I got here. Any final
Yeah.
words, Tim, for the people?
If you could give a piece of advice to a person coming from type 1 into type 2, like what would you say to them?
Mm, I think the main thing is like just try it. I think if you're trying it at nationals, might be kind of daunting, or like you're gonna kind of be going right into uh, the frying pan, so to speak, where you've got people with a lot of experience, and so it might be a little more challenging. But if you have someone else in your play group, or if you have the patience to try it out on Lackey at some point, I would say just build a deck, try it out, see how it feels. You might, I mean, I think that if you have kind of the time and patience for it, that it can really pay off, and is a lot of fun seeing the different strategies, the cards that you don't typically see in Type 1 because they're just don't quite make the cut in a smaller list. Like Caiaphas the Conspirator, he's even in a Type 1 Soulhide list, I don't know if he often gets used, but in here he makes a lot of sense because it's kind of a one-off where you can play just a hireling without having to worry about your dominant or your opponent's dominance interacting, or their soul protection going off. So it's I think that aspect of it just makes it a lot of fun. So I would say just try it out. Don't necessarily worry about having a super refined and optimized deck, having all the duplicates of cards that you want. I think just kind of focus on having maybe good ratios of card types. So you can look at a deck like this and say, okay, he's got 16 heroes, plus Judas, who can be a hero, and then, however many evil characters that is. And then, the enhancements, you can kind of get an idea of how the deck structure should look. Put something together that's maybe similar to your Type 1. You can kind of build it out like, okay, what cards would I add? Which ones do I want to duplicate? And I think that's just a good place to start. And then you can also reach out to people like me, people like Tyler, just post them on the Discord. And if you're looking to get some feedback on, your Type 2 deck, there are definitely people out there that would love to encourage that. So yeah, I guess that's what I would say is just give it a shot. You might hate it, and that's okay. But I think it's at least worth trying it out, because I think a good portion of you are going to be like Tim here, and maybe a little hesitant, like you were saying you were last year, and now you're kind of opening up to it and seeing that, oh, there's a lot of even more depth of strategy here, and some fun things that you can do even in deck building and then also in the gameplay. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So
Thanks, Jaden. I appreciate it.
yeah, thank you for the idea, and just pitching this to me. I'm happy to have more opportunities for Type 2 content on the channel here.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I might, if we're lucky, I might try to get this out sooner than a week from this Thursday, because I've got the Lackey Grand Prix final game that I'm planning to upload.
Good luck on that.
Maybe I'll do a couple of
yeah.
maybe I'll do a couple videos in a week here, and maybe consider this as bonus content because it's Type 2, right? I don't know.
Yeah. Speaking of bonus content, for those who have watched all the way to the end, do you want to show them the new automatic deck check tool?
Oh, we should totally do that. All right, let me. So what I'm going to do here is I'm in Lackey, can save the deck. I'm going to hit copy, and then if I go over to your turn games, it's not the right spot. If I go to Land of Redemption here, and you have the tournament tracker, and that's now available in Land of Redemption. So awesome look to this. You can see that I was trying it out just yesterday here. Oh, well, it's probably been a few days now that when you're seeing it, but I was trying it out, making a fake tournament just to see how it all worked. But what you can do is this deck check PDF here, and obviously if you've already watched the videos on Tim's channel, you know what you're doing, but you can also see that it works for type 2 here. So we're gonna actually, this is your deck. Player name is Tim. The event is Nationals 2025 because I think you're committed.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it sounds like.
We're all sending. We're locking in the deck list right now.
Right, yeah. Deck type is going to be type 2, and then under PDF options for type 2, you want to do show card alignments because then you can make sure that your deck is perfectly balanced, as all things should be. You can go here, you can see that, oh, I guess you've got some tokens in there, but that's okay. They'll show up on your copy, but not on the deck list, so don't worry about that. Generate deck list PDF. And now it's ready. Download. Look at that. And it's even color coded too. It's so cool. So yeah, you get the good count 38, evil count 38, neutral count 26, total cards 102, and you've got all the good in green, the red in, or the evil in red, and the neutral in gray. So yeah, this is it's kind of a game changer. This is if you were hesitant to play type 2 because you didn't want to write out 100 cards on a deck list. Now you don't have that excuse anymore. So we're taking away excuses. So yeah, shout out to Tim. Great job putting this all together. I know I'm definitely going to be taking advantage of it, and hopefully y'all will as well. Check it out on Land of Redemption. All right, I think that's it. Close things up.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks, Tim, and we'll catch you all next time. I was about to say, like, I don't know, I'll close this in prayer, and then I'm like, wait, this is a video. I mean, you know, I could do that, but no. Might be a little awkward. All right. Anyways, we'll catch y'all later. Thanks for watching. Peace.